Looking into conversations with our guests this hour. This hour we're joined by the Principal Secretary in the State Department for Livestock Development. Johnathan Mueke is here with us this morning. Good morning.
Good morning.
Karibu sana.
Asante. Nice to be back.
Good to have you after a while.
Yes.
And now wearing a different hat. And but of course we're going to look into some of those issues, and it's a big ticket item here. I mean, it's great stuff happening, isn't it, PS? Yeah. And so now, of course, we welcome you again. CT will let you know what today's proverb is. You tell us what you think about that and how you would, how you'd resonate with that.
Okay.
Well, our proverbs for the whole of this week come from the Gambia. The Republic of the Gambia. Why it's the Gambia, I don't know, because it's not the Kenya, it's not the Tanzania, the Burundi.
The United, not the France.
It's only the United Arab Emirates. Yes. That one, it's there. Yes. But this is where Dubai is, isn't it?
Yes.
Okay, very good. I just need to confirm. Sometimes I think Dubai is a country.
Oh, yes.
It is mentioned so often. In my mind, I'm thinking there's a country called Dubai.
Yeah, you think you need a different visa for Dubai and Abu Dhabi and Sharjah.
Actually, that happens. All right, anyway, this is the proverb. The disobedient fowl obeys in a bowl of soup. It's an agricultural proverb.
I guess it's similar to the proverb that says, who pays the piper calls the tune.
Calls a tune.
Yeah, so it might be disobedient, but when it needs something, food, then the fowl must obey so that it can be fed.
That is a very interesting interpretation. Yes, it is.
It is.
It is.
It is, actually.
It is. Thank you.
Karibu.
All right. PS, even as we get into this conversation today, we're looking at a number of things. Over the last couple of months, Kenya signed this big ticket agreement with the UAE, interestingly enough. And one of the big things that we saw was that livestock, Kenya's goat meat, very, very popular on that side of the world. So that included some of that. There's also the whole conversation around, vaccinating livestock so that it can actually be in good state so that it can find its way to other shores. Interestingly enough, it was clear that the demand for Kenya's meat can actually not be met, and at the moment you're not able to actually get the numbers that or imports from other countries would require. So we look at all of these elements and we said that there's huge potential for this particular department that you oversee to be able to contribute significantly to Kenya's economy. Just that as an overview. So let's go into some of those details now and say, all right, so where are we in terms of the potential that Kenya's livestock does actually have towards economic development?
Excellent. Good morning, all Spice FM listeners and KTN viewers. It's really nice to be back on the show with these wonderful presenters. Yes, you're right. There is a lot of economic potential in livestock, but sadly, it's never been exploited. There's no government since independence that has intentionally and deliberately said we're going to invest in the livestock sector. It's always just happened. There are pastoralists out there who are running around with cows, goats, sheep, camels, and they sell and they make some money. Others don't make some money, but there's never really been a very strategic, intentional push to invest in the livestock sector and to invest in livestock keepers. So we all know we're in an economic transformation agenda. President Ruto's government is founded on economic transformation. What does that mean? It means that, one, the entire manifesto and most of the government programs, if not all of them, are geared towards three things. Number one, how do you put more money in the pockets of the citizens? And that's very clearly measurable. If you had 2 shillings, will you say now you have 3 shillings? It's very, very clear and simple. Number 2 is job creation, like we've just been speaking about with Mark. Do more Kenyans have jobs in this administration than they did in the previous administrations? Are we employing more Kenyans? Are more jobs being created? And number 3 is around healthcare. if we are not healthy as a population, then we can't produce. And for us to get any sort of economic development or to transform our country economically, put more money in our pockets, create jobs, people must be healthy. So we came up with the universal healthcare program that I think 4 other governments have come up with, but have never seen it to success because it's a serious paradigm shift. And it's a difficult decision to make when it comes to people's health. And that's what we are calling Taifa Care. That's run by the Social Health Authority, now commonly known as Asha. So those are the 3 things that we said, listen, after 5 years, we must sit back and look, did we do this for Kenyans? Now, that being said, we said now, the biggest way or the fastest way to transform our economy is by looking at a sector of our economy that is, again, often very much ignored, the bottom of the pyramid. We always give tax breaks for the big companies. We always give concessions for the big companies. We always give trade agreements for the big companies. What about that guy we were calling Mutu wa Mkokoteni, Mutu wa Kinyozi, Mutu wa Boda Boda, Mama Mboga? How do we empower these people? And livestock happens to be a real bottom-up economic activity, because almost 90% of our households, somebody has some sort of livestock, either a chicken or a bee making honey, or a goat or a sheep or a cow or a camel. Yeah, so it is really an economic activity, and that's why the decision was made by our vision carrier, President Ruto, that we are going to invest in livestock. So let's start from there. So my job is to make sure we can commercialize livestock and make an economic activity around it. So where did we start? We started by looking at the market.
Okay.
Yeah, so we took a value chain approach, and we said we are starting at the end of the value chain. Where is the market for our products? Livestock has 5 products. There is meat, there is milk, milk, eggs, leather, and honey. So we said, why don't we go and do some route to market studies to find out where is the market, what does the market require, in what quality, in what quantities, what is the consistency level, and how competitive are we? And we did a route to market study for red meat, which is our priority value chain. There are 3 of them: dairy and leather. And what we found is that we have a huge potential, both locally and internationally, for our livestock products. The 5 of them I said. We are focusing on 3. We are not able to supply the market for various reasons, not just because we are not producing. We are producing a lot of livestock. Actually, our herd is number 3 in Africa. Okay. But because we are not productive. We are not producing what the market demands. And the market told us what it demands. Market said, listen, we need quality products in large quantities consistently. So if we get an order from what CT thought was a country called Dubai.
Yes.
And we get an order from their local supermarket that they want 1,000 kilograms of goat every week. What's been happening is we're able to supply them this week, and next week we can't. Not because we don't have enough goats, but also because they give us a certain quality that we must meet. So that led us now, as a State Department, to come up with interventions to ensure that we can meet the market needs. Because if you produce and nobody is buying your produce, there's no business you're doing, there's no economic activity you're doing, nobody's making any money. Yeah. So we came up with 4 things that we said we must intervene if we are to be competitive. Because remember, we are competing with other countries. Yeah, even locally we compete with other countries because we import food. So if we don't produce good food for our locals, they'll import it. So since we are competing, we say now we must come up strategically and deliberately with interventions, 4 of them, to ensure that we can be competitive and we can create some economic activity around livestock, which the potential is very huge. Number 1, we are not producing enough quantity, and that came down to our breeds. we've not done breed improvement. Our breeds are inferior. So that means the normal cow that should be able to produce 15, 20 liters of milk per day is only producing 5. Because we have done crossbreeding and many other things that has made that productivity come very low.
Yeah.
So instead of telling somebody to produce 20 liters, you need 4 cows. Now we are saying this one cow can produce for you 20 liters
okay,
if you have a good breed. So we have a national breeding program that is ongoing where we are improving breeds both in cattle and in goat. Number 2 is around animal feed. While we are producing inefficiently because our cost of feed, which is almost 60 to 70% of the cost of production, is too high. So we have an intervention on what is it we are going to do to bring the feed down. That's why we are telling the private sector, listen, we are going to give you large tracts of government land that's sitting idle for you to grow pasture. That's why we are moving from low protein or low nutritious pasture such as boma rods and your normal hay to high grasses, protein grasses like alfalfa, like June cow grass from China, to be able to make sure that your 1 kilogram of grass has 10 times the value as your normal maize stock. Yeah, those are the innovations we are doing in the feed area.
Okay.
The third one is disease control. This story I must tell because it's been a very big conversation, national conversation about vaccination.
Yes.
So in our route to market study for Dubai, and we sent 85% of our red meat to, actually not Dubai, to UAE and Kingdom of Saudi Arabia. Yes. So we decided to focus on those 2 countries. And we went to the supermarkets and we looked at the prices. And we were shown 1 kilogram of goat meat from Pakistan is going for $12 a kilo.
Which is about 1,500 shillings.
1,600 shillings. Mm-hmm. 1 kilogram of goat meat from Kenya is going for $9 a kilo. Mm-hmm. And we asked, why the difference? Our quality, our taste is even better. Why is Pakistani goat more expensive? And the answer from the supermarket, the normal retail, hata sio mdosi wa Okoh, is we are not sure about your disease control. You don't come here with any vaccination certificates, so you don't get a premium for your meat. So we came back and we thought, this is $3 a kilo we are losing. A goat carcass, typically for the ones that go to the UAE, because they like the smaller ones, is 10 kilos. Mm-hmm. So we are losing $30 a goat, which is about 4,000 shillings.
Yep.
A goat, because we are not vaccinating. Now, CT, do you know how much vaccination for a goat costs?
I have no idea.
50 shillings.
50 bob.
So because we are not spending 50 shillings to vaccinate our goat, and you vaccinate the goat with PPR once a lifetime, we are losing 4,000 shillings.
Sorry, PS, I have to clarify. The reason that is being given as to why there's no uptake is because they've not been vaccinated?
Correct, because we cannot...
And this is what they have said.
Correct.
That if you do not... Because usually if they have been vaccinated, you have the little tag proof that this is a vaccinated
and a certificate,
animal,
a vaccination
plus a certificate.
Yes.
So the off-takers, or the uptakers rather, would say, well, Kenya, we are not able to uptake this number because we can't see the vaccination certificate.
Yes.
Actually,
it's not really about the vaccinating certificate.
It is disease control.
It's about disease control.
So
you vaccinate to prevent disease.
Yes. Mm-hmm.
So for them to be sure that the meat you're bringing is not sick, mm-hmm. where's your vaccination?
Why
just
is
like
it
when you're going to South Africa mm-hmm. or India, they ask you for a yellow fever vaccination
to prove that
they don't ask you to prove from your doctor that you don't have yellow fever.
Okay,
they ask you for a vaccination.
But then the question is, why would there be so many animals leaving the country after having not gone through that, if it is known that is what is needed on the other side? Or did we not get to that state yet?
Well, we got to that state. Mm-hmm. All that happens is you are ranked lower quality.
I get it.
All right. So you know they grade. So they say this one has not been vaccinated. So we are not saying it is sick, because when our meat leaves here, it's inspected at the airport mm-hmm. by the Directorate of Veterinary Services, mm-hmm. which is another state department for livestock.
Yes.
So we vaccinate, we inspect all meat that's been exported mm-hmm. at the point of export mm-hmm. to make sure that it is not sick. But on the other side, because we cannot prove we have vaccinated our animals, mm-hmm. so you are graded as a lower quality, hence you get less money.
Well, P.S., I'm still puzzled.
Yes.
If the Inspectorate or the Directorate of Veterinary Services inspects, it means they understand that the animal whose carcass is being exported was probably vaccinated, so it is safe. Why can't they issue a certification?
Because you don't know if it was vaccinated. You issue a certification at the point of vaccination. And CT, we're only vaccinating 10% of our livestock.
Just a quick question, Bona PS.
Yes.
A lot of the farmers that export are not your typical villager, right? I know there are some big farmers. Just to mention one, there's a guy with a big farm on the Eastern Bypass that was raided some time back.
Yes.
And he exports quite a bit.
Yes.
So I am aware that the large farmers, the reason they do that is they go through the whole process of actually identifying the animal from birth all the way to slaughter.
Yes.
So, and that forms the bulk of what we export. I know this because, first I can confirm, supermarket prices, you're right, demand in UAE and the Kingdom of Saudi Arabia, you're right, 100%.
Yes.
My question is, a lot of the carcasses that are exported, I know for a fact, are also tracked from birth to slaughter. So, where's the discrepancy?
Tracked by whom?
By who?
So what happens is
very far from the truth.
Animals, when they are born, are supposed to be tracked. So you tag them, right? So you tag them. You say this one was born this day, it was vaccinated this day, it was done all of these things, right?
But so that is very, very far from the truth. Very, very, very far from the truth.
Okay.
The example you just gave about the large farmers, I can tell you, are less than 5% of what goes out.
No, but those large farmers, do they do that?
They do that, and that's not
So
our
that's not
problem.
far from the truth,
I told you. Hold on a second. Hold on a second. Let's go systematically so that everybody can understand this.
Right.
We're only vaccinating about 10% of our animal population.
Okay.
About 5% are these large ranches that Mark is talking about. The other 5% might be farmers out there who can afford vaccination.
Okay.
The other 90% are going completely unvaccinated. Just to put it into context, we probably send out 3,000 or 4,000 goats a day.
A day. To where?
To everywhere. Iran, Bahrain, Kuwait, Saudi Arabia.
But mostly the Gulf is where it's going.
Mostly the Gulf.
Okay.
We don't meet the standard for Europe.
Okay.
That's another thing that we are trying to get to because, again, of disease control. So we don't send to Europe, to America, to China, which are very big markets. So we do mainly to the Middle East. So the farmer that Mark probably talked about has 2,000 goats.
Okay.
And if he has 2,000 goats, that means he'll only be able to export maybe in a cycle 20%.
Okay.
So maybe 400 of them.
Yes.
A cycle is 9 months, so which means he's only maybe able to export in a month 30, 40 of them.
Yeah.
So you're talking about this farmer who's doing 40 a month, which is probably 2 a day or 1 a day, against Kenyans, the other Kenyans, who are doing 4,000 a day.
What's
it's
the
completely
different?
Negligible.
So what's
my question,
you can't say for a fact that the big farmers are the ones that are doing majority of the
my question, Bona PS, was not about the big farmer. My question was that these farmers, there are some Kenyan farmers who meet standard.
Very
it's okay.
Very few. And why we are doing this is so that we can increase the number of farmers who meet those standards.
I beg you listen to my question.
Yes.
Those farmers who do meet that standard of vaccination, who do have certificates, are they getting the right price?
Correct, they are.
Okay, that's what I'm asking.
They're getting the right price.
What's the percentage of these farmers who are actually following through to meet the standard? Whose meat now, for example, or whose livestock produce is actually going out?
Less than 5%.
Less than 5%. If we look at what standardization needs, because it's clear, the market is there. They are saying bring. Kenya has the potential.
Correct.
Right? So those elements are already there. And you mentioned, you said it thrice already, that we don't produce enough to the quality of standard that is required.
Correct.
So my question is why, and what can be done to get there? Because it seems as though there's a collection, right? There's this farmer here, there's this farmer here, so collecting from everywhere.
So
what needs to be done?
There's 4 things I'd already spoken about. The first 3. One was breed improvement for all these farmers. It has to be a nationwide deliberate access. The other one is animal feed, to make sure that we can be able to lower the cost of production and also increase productivity. The third one was disease control. If we don't vaccinate, even if we have the animals, we are not going to be able to sell them.
Okay.
And the fourth one is what Mark spoke about, traceability. The world now over is beginning to say that if we cannot tell where this animal came from, we are not going to buy it. So we've gotten now a system called Animal Identification and Traceability, ANITRAC. It's at the tail end of development. We will begin testing it next week.
So this
if we do those 4 things, we will be able to triple the amount of money we make from our livestock sector. If we do those 4 things, livestock on its own is going to become bigger than tea, coffee, and flowers combined.
What's the
amount? So that is why it is so important for us to do those. As I conclude with this, we realize as government that why we are not doing these things is not because our farmers don't know they need to be done. It's because, again, 80% of our production system in both crops and livestock is smallholder. So 80% of our livestock farmers have 3 goats or 5 goats, and some of them sometimes cannot afford to do these things. So the government has come back and I've said, that's why I say this government is the first government that is now really looking into the livestock sector. The president has come and said, listen, we have given crops a subsidy for fertilizer. We've given crops a subsidy for coffee to ensure we pay their debts. We've paid debts for sugar. We've paid debts for tea. What have we done for the livestock keepers? So we said we're going to give them a subsidy also. And the subsidy we are doing is vaccination. Let's do a national mass vaccination at government's cost for the first year as a subsidy to the livestock farmers. Let's give them the genetics they need to improve their breeds as a subsidy for the livestock farmers. We are now looking at subsidizing even the animal feed producers so they can bring down the price of especially chicken and feed food, which is extremely high. Again, to give a subsidy for the people who grow that.
Currently,
and
what
then you will
what
see
is the
productivity that
percentage
comes up
of our exports and contribution to GDP that livestock currently occupies? What percentage?
We are probably exporting about 80 billion shillings. GDP now is what, maybe 11-12 trillion shillings, so it's very, very, very negligible. But we will be able to get to, and most of it is dairy, by the way. But we should be able, with these interventions, we should be able to surpass many crops.
Okay. Beyond vaccination,
yes,
we have drought in this country.
Yes.
And the place in the country which has the largest number of livestock are prone to this particular drought.
Yes.
What, in addition to the vaccination, is the government doing to ensure that when drought comes along, because it will, it doesn't deplete the livestock resource as it has done in previous years?
Yes. So we are doing 3 things for drought, and we are calling it resilience. Number 1, which is ongoing, and we have surpassed our targets by more than 50%, is livestock insurance. By now, we should have been able to insure 125,000 herds of cattle. We are, I think, at 180,000. How the insurance program works is you're not insuring the livestock in case of death. You're insuring the livestock so that when the drought comes, you can give a payout to the insured to go and look for feed.
Okay.
So that's the first one. The second intervention is around feedlots. So we are now saying, why don't we get feedlots as fattening centers and off-takers for livestock at the community level?
Okay.
We've started with 3 that are complete and just about to be operationalized. One in Chemogoch in Baringo, one in Hadado Wajir, and one in Meru in Tigania West. How these feedlots work is you will have all these herds of livestock in the villages, and when drought hits, then they will come and bring the animals to the feedlot. The animals will be weighed. If the animal weighs, for context, 100 kgs, we will pay them money from the feedlot, that 100 kgs. Then, because the feedlot has enough feed and irrigation, we will fatten that animal to 150 kgs and then go and slaughter it, so harvest it.
Okay.
That extra 50 kilogram will be shared between the owner of the feedlot, which is the local cooperative, and the owner of the livestock. So they'll get a bonus of another 25 kilograms.
And this is something that's happening now, or something to happen?
This is something that's happening now. The infrastructure is complete. The third thing, I spoke about innovation in terms of the kind of pasture that we are producing. There's now grasses, CT, like alfalfa, like the Junkao grass, that can grow with very, very little water. And if you go to Mandera and to Wajir, right now, I can send you guys pictures later, you'll find grasses as high as your height that is being grown in those SL areas. And again, that's really going to be able to help ensure that we do not lose our animals anymore
to drought. Principal Secretary in the State Department of Livestock Development, Johnathan Mueke, is our guest this hour. The potential that development of livestock actually does have towards the economy.
Yeah, Bonapius, the reason I asked you about the big farmer and what he's getting was so that the audience that's listening can believe that you can actually get a better price. And there are two things that I'd like to ask you in that perspective, because there's definitely a big market. There's a big market for honey as well. And some time back, in fact, the government was in the process of making a center for testing our honey because we had not standardized our honey. Now, going back to the animal production bit, Kenya has one of the biggest herds of cattle and sheep in Africa. I think it's the third largest, except that it is now smallholder. Now, there is the question of, one, how do we ensure the quality of our hides? Because that's one market that we've not explored, to make sure that farmers get the hide correctly. Number two, give us a bit more detail for the smallholder farmer. How is he going to get his certification? Where is he going to get it? Are there extension officers on the ground that are going to help them, one, understand what is happening, because that is very important, two, dispel rumors, because, for example, we were told that the vaccines are supposed to deal with fats and things like that. Then number three, help them to get the route to external markets, because most of our farmers sell their cattle, sheep and goats to middlemen who then take them to the Kichinjio and whatever. So how do we get the extension officer to educate the person, give them the certificates they need, and give them a route to market that is external to the country, and dispel rumors? But they start with the rumor about cow fats.
By the way, Mark, you are so spot on. And that's why when I started this conversation we're having this morning, I said the agenda of the government is bottom-up economic transformation agenda. Bottom-up, And why is it bottom-up? It's because we realized the guys at the top are the ones who are always making all the money because they have the muscle too. And there are only 5% of them. The other 95% of them are hukuchini at the bottom, but because nobody lifts them up, they remain at the bottom. Now, Mark is spot on. The guys who are at the top are vaccinating, they have superior breeds, they are exporting, they have access to the market, and they are making a killing. And we know them, they are big brands around here. They are making a killing because livestock is an extremely profitable industry. Now, even when they get more orders than their own farms can supply, what do? They go to the guy at the bottom, buy at a throwaway price, because they know the guy at the bottom cannot fatten their animal, cannot vaccinate their animal, cannot feed their animal, get it at a very lower price, add a little value of vaccination. I told you it's 50 shillings. For the cow, it's 150 shillings. Add that little value and make 2,000% profit off the small guy. And that's why now government is saying, why don't we help the guys at the bottom? So, Mark, you're absolutely right.
Yeah.
How do we help them vaccinate their animals?
Okay.
Yes.
Now, misconception. The farmer knows what to do.
Absolutely.
That's why they are farmers.
Yes.
The farmer knows they need to vaccinate. They're just not able to vaccinate because maybe of some financial constraints.
Have they
Or
not been vaccinating
maybe-
all this time,
They've
though?
been vaccinating, but I told you 10%.
Okay.
The statistics are 10%.
Okay.
We have the data.
Yeah.
Because we are
That-
the ones
that
who
is
do
true.
The vaccinations, yeah. And why? Because how do they access the vaccine?
Sure. From whom?
From who? Let
Yeah.
me tell you, like right now, the study we were told, Ndo, is that we are only able to deliver 14% of what the UAE and Saudi Arabia are looking for.
Yeah, without touching Oman and the rest.
Yeah,
which-
just those
yeah.
two. Only 14%, which means there's an 86% of our livestock that they want that they can't get. Now, on the other hand, my auntie in a place called Tiva in Kitui Central is trying to sell a goat to pay school fees and has walked from market to market to market to market
Yeah.
and cannot find somebody to buy her goat for 5,000 shillings, while the guy from Dubai is saying, I'll buy it for 8,000 or 9,000 shillings. So, market linkage.
Why can't we make
my
the connect?
auntie knows that she wants to sell her goat, but she has no idea on how to get her goat to Dubai. That's where government is coming in to ensure that now we can help our people with access to market. So what have we done? One, I've talked about the interventions of the subsidies we're giving the small guy so that they can up their quality and they can also be able to make money from their livestock. But two, livestock has been completely unstructured. So we've already begun the process. As we speak, I have a team in 21 counties doing what you call aggregating smallholder farmers into livestock production units or cooperatives, as you are, right? Dairy is a little bit organized. Tea and coffee is extremely organized. Livestock is completely unstructured. The only structure that is probably there, very little, is in the northern Kenya with the pastoralists, because they structure themselves around clans.
Right.
Yeah, and that's why you see the animal is blended for this clan, for this clan. But how can we put them in units so that you take 5 cows here, 5 cows there until they reach 1,000? Then you form a cooperative with that 1,000. Then you now give them inputs and subsidies through e-voucher system like fertilizer through that cooperative. So you give them their feed subsidy, their genetic subsidy for breed improvement, their tagging for traceability, and their vaccination through that, and their insurance through that subsidy. Yeah, I mean through that cooperative, and then you give that cooperative an off-take agreement and you link them directly to the export market.
Okay.
Which is what our president has been doing when he travels. He signed the Comprehensive Economic Partnership Agreement with UAE. The first one UAE has signed with a country in Africa, signed the Economic Partnership Agreement with the European Union, which has given us access to 27 countries in Europe, duty-free, quota-free, accessing a market with a joint GDP of $19.8 trillion.
Now, I hear what you're
saying. The markets are open, but we can't push anything through the door because we don't meet the standard.
And that's the bane.
So
and
government
that's the
now
bane.
is helping the normal Mwananchi
PS.
to bring the standard. Just let me finish my my thought. Just 1 second. Just to finish with Mark on the vaccination and the misconception. So why I was saying the farmer knows what to do is right now, though, under this mass vaccination program, we have vaccinated Embu, Tharaka-Nithi, Laikipia, Kitui. You saw us last week in Northeastern, where with the president, we were able to vaccinate Garissa, Wajir, and Mandera. And guess what? We did not go look for those animals. The farmers heard that at this market, the government is doing a mass national vaccination program. They brought their animals voluntarily, which means they know they need it. They know what to do. They just did not have the means to do it. And now the government, through a subsidy, has given them the means to do it. So you will see a huge talk of whatever. So this whole rumor that the farmers don't want this, the farmers don't understand this is just talk amongst naysayers who are very adverse to change.
P.S. I think it's necessary to look at the 4 issues that you mentioned as a whole.
Yes.
Because sadly and unfortunately, the only thing that came out from those 4 things was the vaccination aspect of it.
Yes.
And it was met with such, vitriol because of the fact that it was not couched in all the proper information and communication that it ought to have been. And sadly, That's the bane sometimes of government, that you don't talk about the things that you do in whole. So you don't give everybody the information at once. I don't think there's anybody who doesn't want to increase the potential of their business. If they know that there is help coming from government, that it comes through in a transparent manner. And so perhaps that is where it came from. The frameworks that you talk about also are the bane. I mean, look at trade agreements that we've made in Africa. Look at trade agreements, huge ones, but have borne no result because of the fact that the implementation matrix always has a problem. And so here we are asking the agreement with the UAE, the agreement for the 27 for Europe,
the one that's going on with America right now.
What is the guarantee that back at home, you can sit in the boardrooms in New York or Brussels or wherever, or Dubai or Sharjah, but what is the guarantee that back home, everything that is needed to be done, information that's needed to be shared, will actually happen, so that it just doesn't become a framework or a skeleton with no meat? No pun intended.
So, and these are actually, I'm really enjoying this conversation. You've mentioned that we have done all these trade agreements. We've had the AGOA trade agreement with America for the last 10 years. The only probably thing we've taken advantage of is maybe 10-15% of it, mainly the textiles at the EPZ that employs 30,000 people, and all of it goes export, and there's even a question about how much we gain as a country apart from the direct job employment. And we've done all these things the same way since 1963. Since independence, Mark, we've done them the same way.
True.
And why this government is getting so much heat, and also we have such a trust deficit, is because President Ruto has decided he's going to make the decisions to change this country. And the things that we've not been going to be able to do, we're going to do them. And that change is what is causing uncertainty. Because people are like, hold on, let me tell you. People are like, why are we starting mass vaccination now? Why haven't we done it since 1963? Simple, because we have never focused on ensuring we're empowering our farmers. Now we have decided we are going to empower our farmers. And what do we need to do to empower our farmers? To get market and put money in their pockets? Vaccinate. The housing program. We have slums in Kibera, in Kawangware, in everywhere there are slums. So the president comes and says, listen, I want there to be no slum in this country in 10 years. We're going to build affordable housing.
And people ask you to pay for it.
It can't happen. It can never happen. It's not possible.
So
it's the change that people are not whatevering about. Let me just finish.
It's not the change.
Let me finish my thought. Because we've done such transformation stuff. Like right now I had the conversation about the buffalo. Okay, we've been working on this thing since December of 2023.
And who have you been
telling?
There's a whole people who need buffaloes. You would not know because you don't need a buffalo.
No, it's not that.
No.
It's in fact, I am glad you have mentioned the buffalo, and I'm glad you have framed it the way you have, because
let's talk about
that is actually the heart of the matter.
And that's exactly what we said. That where is the market? Who's breeding them?
Exactly.
CC, ask your question.
Yes.
My question is a simple one.
Yes.
You bring... Mutai Kagwe tells us there are buffaloes. God knows what is going to happen to the buffaloes.
Yes.
The president does the same thing about vaccination.
Yes.
What you've done today is what should have been done.
Exactly.
Yes.
You pronounce it, the president has said, then there is information across board in the same manner as you have. So we know, these are the details of what the president meant.
Yes.
Most times there's a pronouncement vacuum. So we fill in the vacuum. These so-called naysayers that you say, that's what happens.
That's good feedback.
Something is said and there's nothing from the respective departments and ministries to back it up with details. So
and the thing goes like wildfire.
So the public sits back and says, what exactly? There was the issue of vetting.
Yes.
We've always vetted. Always.
Correct.
And everybody is vetted. Northeastern Kenya were vetted more than others. The president says, I'm removing the vetting. The respective departments come in and say, this is what vetting means, and this is what the president was talking about. Nothing is said, we fill in the blanks. And then we are called the naysayers. And there's a vacuum, Bona PS.
I think that's good feedback that we'll take back to the ranks of government. But you see also something like the vetting. I was in one of my social groups the other day trying to tell people, listen, Why is it that a Kenyan who's seated somewhere in Kitui can get an ID, and a Kenyan is seated in Garissa cannot get an ID? Why? And it's always happened since independence. So when the president now finally says the guy in Garissa and Mandera and Wajir is just as Kenyan as the guy who's seated in Meru or Murang'a or Embu, and they should be treated the same way, the country is in uproar. And they start saying that we're going to give people from Somalia IDs. Who said we're giving people from Somalia
The guy
IDs?
from your backyard in Kitui will also be asked to bring
his parents'
His
information.
parents.
Everybody is asked.
Yes, but one is vetted more.
Precisely. Now,
than
all
the
I'm
other.
saying is, imagine that little bit.
Yes.
of information.
Just saying, this is what happens.
Yes.
And this is now what is going to happen.
Yes.
And those extra things that you hear of will not happen. But you will still have to do this and this like everybody else.
If we can just reroute this just a little bit, because we're running out of time. If we can just reroute this just a little bit. First of all, PS, the audience is insisting that you call me Ndu. Yes. So
Door is a bucket.
Yeah.
And
I am
no.
Me that door thing made me
I am
happy.
It made you happy.
I've sent you the emoji. That's how I shall save you from
The
now.
thing is
I will practice
that
that.
the issue
Okay.
of sure, it's not a problem. The issue of communication
Yes.
around an economic element that involves Kenyans, because this livestock is not being got from Mars. There are
Yes.
people who are breeding them. There are people who want to be part of the spectrum, the people who want to be part of the cycle. So sharing the information with them wholesome then becomes vital. Now, when we talk about implementation moving
yes.
forward,
Yes.
how will you be sure or guarantee that the folks who are breeding the cattle, the folks who are vaccinating with information are
the buffalo.
breeding the buffalo if it makes
Yes.
its way to the shores, or as people have said, maybe it's already here and we don't know.
Yes.
Anyway,
Yes.
if they are not involved in these processes, how will you guarantee?
I think they are. There's stakeholder engagement, and there's mass communication or public relations. I think government mainly focuses a lot maybe on stakeholder engagement. For example, let me just speak about the buffalo for a few seconds. This is, if you read the Gazette notice, this is the domesticated water buffalo. Now, I've seen some Kenyans talk about, now we're going to go into the national park and poach our buffaloes. You know, that's a wild animal. All right, there's a difference between a wild animal and a domesticated animal. A domesticated animal is the one that you keep at home for domestic use. Why did we do that? Again, like we are saying, we are focusing on productivity. We are pushing the envelope. So we went to India, who are the biggest producers of quality dairy in the world by far. We do about 5.4 billion liters a year. India does now, they are pushing almost 300 billion liters a year. Yeah. And we went to form a partnership with them, because when President Ruto went to meet Prime Minister Modi in December last year, and they spoke about the dairy sector. And since India has been the most successful in the world in the dairy sector, the Prime Minister told the President, if you can bring your team, we can partner and we can help you guys transform your dairy industry. So 2 weeks later, the President sent myself and a team from Livestock and from his economic transformation team, and we went and spent 2 weeks in India with the Indians. And we learned a few things about the domesticated water buffalo. They keep them at home just like they keep cows. Their butter fat or their nutrition value from their milk is 3 times as much as a cow. So the cow will give you about 3% butterfat content. The domesticated water buffalo, which is a cousin to the cow, will give you about 9. Yeah. What does that do? It enables you to make high value dairy items like cheese, ice cream, chocolate, ghee, butter.
Do you see?
Much better.
You see?
Right?
Do you see how wonderful this is? And I'm sorry, because our time is actually running out.
Yes,
But do
two
you
more
see-
seconds.
Yes,
Just
2
2 more
seconds. I'll
seconds.
give you
Because
that.
we done 3 things about them. So one was about the dairy, and it was very huge. So for us to do value addition and get into the manufacturing sector, which we want to bring from 7.5% of GDP to 15, then we thought, let's not just get white water milk from our cows. Why can't we get cheese, mozzarella cheese, and all of that for our pizzas and everything? Number 2, we learned about their meat. The meat is very lean with half the cholesterol of cow meat. Number 3, we learned about leather. He asked about leather mark. Yeah, they are hardy. They have very good leather because their leather is thick and of high quality. They are much bigger than your normal cow, almost twice as big. So you're able to get much more market for a bigger hide for your leather production and high quality. And then the cost of production is half of a cow because they eat very low quality feed, but they translate that very low quality feed into very high quality products, milk, meat, and leather. So they are very low maintenance. So we came and we wondered, what do we need to do to bring this buffalo that has helped India transform their dairy sector into
and bring it to Kenya?
And then we looked at our law, and the Meat Control Act allows the cabinet secretary to gazette an animal as a food animal, which means you can now get its meat and its milk.
I hear you on that, and I'm sorry, our time has come to an end.
We met with stakeholders, we went to the AG,
and the thing is that
so
this information,
I
hear you, and this information having been shared earlier would have stopped speculation, and I hope that's something we can go away with today. Johnathan Mueke is the Principal Secretary in the State Department for Livestock Development, has been our guest this hour. Asante sana for being here.
This is the Situation Room, the only way to start your day.